Resistance training is the queen to strength and longevity, to body recomposition, to bone density. And so if you are not resistance training, you are losing out on this opportunity to lose that belly fat and have body recomposition in perimenopause and menopausal years. Every decade after 30, women are losing between 5 and 8% of their muscle mass. And so the more intentional you are with your training in your 30s, the longer that muscle mass will stay with you.
What is the number one fitness trend that you see perimenopause women falling into that's doing more harm than good?
LaFerrara
is a strength coach redefining what it means to be powerful in and out of the gym.
With over a decade of experience, certifications in menopause coaching, mobility, Olympic lifting, and hypertrophy, and a no BS, deeply empowering style,
Tara helps women build strength they can feel physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Through her Broads app, global fitness retreats, and one-on-one coaching,
she's created a movement that's as much about community and confidence as it is about lifting heavy.
We need to push our bodies to a specific point where our muscles are working hard enough. And there has to be this challenge with the muscles in order for them to grow. However, there is a difference between Pilates, muscular endurance, and strength training, building strength in your body. Pilates is more...
Many women are taught that cardio is the gold standard for weight loss. I want to hear from you. Why might cardio be sabotaging perimenopausal women's weight loss goals?
There's a couple pieces to this. Cardio, it doesn't allow...
Welcome to the Dr. Brighten Show, where we burn the BS in women's health to the ground. I'm your host, Dr. Jolene Brighten, and if you've ever been dismissed, told your symptoms are normal or just in your head, or been told just to deal with it, this show is for you. And if while listening to this, you decide you like this kind of content, I invite you to head over to drbrighten.com, where you'll find free guides, twice weekly podcast releases, and a ton of resources to support you on your journey. Let's dive in. What is the number one fitness trend that you see perimenopause women falling into that's doing more harm than good?
They think they have to do more cardio, more steps, eat less food. They need to move their body so much, sweat so hard, be exhausted, when really you can do less. And when you're a lot more intentional with your training, you get way more results, especially during this time of your life.
Okay, so I want to talk about that because most, I would say the old school doctors, right, really have ingrained this into women of like, if you want to lose weight, eat less, move more. Every time you go to the doctor says, have you tried losing weight? You're like, I have acne. They're like, have you tried losing weight? I broke my bone. Have you tried losing weight? Like, and while like our weight can definitely contribute, like there's no denying, especially when we're going to talk about like visceral adiposity or belly fat that's deep packed around the organs, our weight can contribute to a lot of diseases. It is not insignificant, but we're always told to do more, and that the problem is you're not doing enough. So why is this a myth?
It's a myth because, as we know with the studies that have been shown, resistance training is the queen to strength and longevity, to body recomposition, to bone density. And so if we're focusing a lot more on strength training and doing 2 to 4 times a week to increase that bone density and just overall body composition, you're getting so much more out of it than just constantly chasing the sweat and chasing the soreness.
Okay, I'm definitely going to want to get into more in depth of like, how does strength training help us? How do we even start, especially if somebody is like, not ever done it before? But I do want to go back to this conversation of belly fat because so many women want to know, what is the most effective way to lose belly fat?
Dr. Jolene Brighten, you're going to hear me say this the entire podcast, but strength training is, I always like to say queen. I know it's king, but it really is the absolute queen when it comes to this. As we know, we are burning more calories at rest when we're strength training. As we know, the more muscle we have, the less likely we are to, focus. The more muscle we have, the better body composition that we'll have. And so if we have these very focused strength training sessions, your body will change. And that is definitely the way to reduce that belly fat. Now, of course, nutrition and lifestyle choices and in your environment, stress levels, all of that comes into play too. But if you are not resistance training, you are losing out on this major opportunity to lose that belly fat and have body recomposition in perimenopause and menopausal years.
I want to talk about why belly fat creeps on and is so sticky.
Yeah.
So for most women, they're not made aware that they are in perimenopause, or that's even a thing until they get into their 40s.
Yeah.
But we know that perimenopause can start as early as age 35. For some women, it can be sooner, depending on your genetics. And yet everything that's happening in your 30s is what's contributing to what you finally notice in your 40s. So can you talk to us about the changes that are going on there?
Every decade after 30, women are losing between 5 and 8% of their muscle mass. And so the more intentional you are with your training in your 30s, the longer that muscle mass will stay with you. So changing your lifestyle, changing your habits in your 20s, even in your 20s, is so much more important and valuable than waiting until you get to those 40s and 50s. And like I've mentioned, lifestyle changes is a huge one as well. I think women don't really think about that until it gets to that point. And really, just as a society as a whole, we sit so much more throughout the day. We go for easy packaged goods when it comes to food and nutrition. And so creating this solid foundation in your 30s will be so much more powerful as you get into your 40s and 50s.
I want to talk about what that solid foundation is.
Yeah.
But first, if you haven't set the solid foundation in your 30s, your 40s, 50s, 60s plus, is it hopeless?
Absolutely not. You can start strength training at any age. Of course, the earlier, the better. But man, I have a client just the other day. She started at 47 and now she's deadlifting 245 pounds, at 50 years old. So there is so much more you can do as you get older and at any age. However, just in general, it makes it a little bit harder. I mean, when you talk about a major change in your life, you have to change so many aspects of it. And so change is hard, especially as you get older because things are so ingrained for you for so long. So the earlier, the better, but you can strength train at any age.
So let's talk about what are the lifestyle habits that sabotage our metabolic health and our body composition that many people in the United States are adopting in their 30s?
I think we can both agree that stress is probably number one, maybe sleep actually before that. But the stress level is huge because that can affect so many parts of your body. It can affect the way you sleep, your hydration. Are you eating enough? Are you sitting too much throughout the day? And so if we can manage our stress levels, and we can chat about ways to do that, we can then in turn change so many of these other lifestyle things. Kind of things will fall more into place if we can manage that stress level.
Why do you say that stress and sleep are the most important when it comes to body composition?
If we're not getting adequate rest, the strength training that we put in, we're not actually able to recover. So the work that we put in the gym isn't actually we're not going to see value out of it. And so sleep is just the number one thing because we need to be able to recover ourselves, our brain, our body in order to make sure that all these other lifestyle changes occur.
What do you say to your clients when it comes to I just have too much to do. So, I can't take time to get sleep. I can't be getting more than 6 hours of sleep because who's going to fold the laundry? Who's going to get up and make breakfast?
Yeah, mental load is huge. I had Dr. Vanessa Marin on my podcast, and she was talking about, she's a sex therapist, talking all about mental load. And that is what you're talking about here with, all these stuff you have going on, your constant to-do list, constant checklist. And if we always have those in your brain, it's really hard to take care of yourself. So the number one thing I would say would be to, if you do have a partner, try and lean on them for support and guidance. If you have someone in your life that can help with some of these things, amazing. But really just take one step at a time. You don't have to complete all 10 things on your list. What are 3 things that you can complete with also making sure that you're taking care of yourself? Because as we all know, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, everyone else around us is not going to get the best version of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to your exercise routine and your sleep, let's say somebody's look, I'm not going to be able to hit 7, 8, 9 hours. And we know a lot of women need more 9 hours a night.
Yeah.
So let's say we've got a day that's cardio, we've got a day that's strength training, a day that's mobility work. What days would you say these are the days that absolutely you need to work on your sleep?
It's a great question. And I'll always preface this with saying I look at the average of the week. We are not a day-to-day human being. Obviously women are, revolve around a 28-day cycle, your cycle. But I like to look at the average of your week. So for example, if you're someone that gets 6 hours of sleep, your goal could be 7 as an average. So maybe some days can have 9 and some days can have 6 or 7. And having that average go up just an hour makes a huge change in your lifestyle. And so is there a day that's better than others? Really, you know your body better than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me in my cycle, I need more sleep in my early cycle days. And so I'll maybe put a little bit more focus there, but that just depends on work schedule, life, kids. I don't have kids, but that's a whole nother thing. And so I would like, if you can look at the average of your weeks and then overall month, that's where the real magic happens.
You said early cycle days. Are you talking about like days 1 through 5 of your cycle?
Personally, me, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so for people who are like, what does that mean? Day 1 is the first day that you have your flow, that you have your period. And so it's interesting that you say that, because for me, it'll be the luteal phase, and it'll be like 2 to 3 days leading up to my period. That's when my body's like, pull it back, slow it down, get more sleep. And that's also, I don't sleep with an alarm because I have children. People are like, how do you not do that? Because I have one child who will wake up at 6 and another one that wakes up at 7. So I know like when I'm getting up, but I've noticed like sometimes before my period that I won't even wake up. Like when they get up, like I will sleep. And that's where I can lean on my partner for that. Yeah. I also, I meal prep on when I know that's coming. But even like today, like we were starting, you and I, a Monday morning, and I was like, I have to meal prep. I made a legitimate high protein, overnight oats with chia seeds. I say that because people are like, oh, this is high protein. And I do the math on it. I'm like, that probably is like 5 grams.
No, that is not high protein.
Yeah.
5 grams.
But I did that. And then at like 5 o'clock last night, my husband's like, don't be making muffins. Like, what are you doing? And I made these like high protein muffins, so that I was like, I just need to have stuff for everybody in the house to just grab in the morning and be able to eat. So I just bring that up because if you are someone who's like, I have kids and like, how do I make sure I get the extra sleep? Meal prep is one of those things that like, there's only a few people I've ever met who are like, I love meal prep. And I actually do I like to stress bake and stress cook, and like, that's my thing. But I do want to encourage people just to think about like, what can you do to take something off your plate in the morning just to ease things up?
I like to say that your best morning starts at night.
Mm-hmm.
The better you have of an evening routine, the more you set yourself up in the morning, the better day you'll have. So that can include meal prep. That can include setting your clothes out the night before. I set my vitamins on the table. I have 2 full water bottles on the table so that I know when I sit down, overnight oats are prepped as well. So I know as soon as I sit down, I've got everything I need right there and it's all set up for you.
You're going to be like so ahead of the curve in perimenopause. Let me just say that. So the strategy you just outlined, we talk a lot on the podcast for women with ADHD. This is like exactly what they need to do. And ADHD gets so much worse with perimenopause. It doesn't have to, but it does. And you have to do something about it. But we also see the same cognitive challenges and struggles in terms of like executive function come up when estrogen drops really low. And so that's another habit I just want to highlight for people, that if you start that sooner, and you can start it at any time, as long as you just start it, that can help you so much in easing that mental load that you were talking about.
And it's also important to note that if you don't have any of this, do one thing for like a couple weeks, and then you can add another thing. And now I do have like what I would consider like a 7-step morning routine, but like everything's just laid out for me. But I would not suggest someone be like, oh, she said these 5 things, I've got to do all of them. Pick one.
Yeah. Do you remember the movie Clueless, where like she had the closet? I have this like idea in my mind for like 10 years that I'm like, I'm going to take a picture of me in outfits I like and then just have a catalog so I never have to think about it. I've yet to execute on that.
Yeah.
But it's the kinds of things of like, even just, I will tell you that I buy, if I find something I like a shirt, I will buy multiples of it. And then I don't have to think about it. Like, I'm just going to wear that. I also have like fitness clothes. I'm like, these pants work. I'm going to buy 3. Like, I'm going to buy like multiples of these things. And that's just taking less pressure off of having to think about like, even just what do I wear the next day? So I can put energy into things about like, how do I eat? How do I move? Like, how do I put energy into the things that actually are going to improve my quality of life?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you say that. I actually, sometimes I'll have like a rainbow week. So Monday's red, Tuesday's orange, like for my workout clothes, or I'll take photos of myself before I go on a trip. So I'll be like, this is the outfit that you're going to wear for this. So
I have done that on trips because I've always tried to do the capsule wardrobe, but I will plan out, and I'm not very good at it, but I will plan out things. But I've noticed that I'll be like, why did I bring like only one shirt with this? Like, what am I doing? I'm like, because I already packed like so long ago in my anxiety state. I was like, oh, you have to pack a month in advance or you're going to be messing up.
Yeah. You always forget something and then don't wear something anyways. But that has helped for me in the past too.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about walking because walking and Pilates have become so controversial on the internet.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about walking because people will say that's not exercise. But then there are women who are like, well, wait a minute. I dropped the cardio. I did strength training and walking, and I lost weight and gained muscle. So can we talk about walking? Good or bad? How should it fit into the fitness routine?
I love to walk, but I'm going to tell you, pre-COVID, 2019, I was like, why are we walking? Like, why are we just walking for fun? And now I'm obsessed with it. I think everyone should do it. And like I've mentioned, we're such sedentary people now. And so why is it such a big deal that people are walking more? Why is this even a question? To be honest with you, it feels silly to me because if people are getting up and moving, why wouldn't we want them to? So it's not necessarily good or bad. It's that we need more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it exercise? Yes. I mean, because if you're getting off your butt and getting out the door, especially getting in nature, your mental health, there's so many great things with walking that absolutely it is a piece of exercise. And truly, I think that the push of it being trendy now is so wonderful for women, everyone, but especially for women, just because it, reduces your stress, the mental capacity, your mental health. It allows you to think and breathe and just get out of your head. And so there is that piece of it too. I mean, obviously there's weighted vests and there's other things you can do and speed walk or fast slow. I don't know if you saw that recently with there's Japanese walking where you go 3 minutes fast and 3 minutes slow.
But you know what that is? That's the Couch to 5K.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that from I think that was 2015 that got big of Couch to 5K. And it was how do you get from you're totally sedentary to a 5K, running a 5K. Yeah. And it was, you start with 30 seconds of walking, 30 seconds of running, and it's a whole way to build up. But it also had this whole component of you're just gonna slow walk, fast walk with that. So this is something that I'm everything I'll tell you, I've been in the health and wellness industry for over 25 years, and everything just gets a rebrand.
Exactly.
Atkins became keto. Everything, I'm just this is the same thing. We're just calling it something different. But there is something to be said that if you call it French, I would say it was the early 2000s. If it was the Parisians did it, or the French did it, then everybody bought into it. Now we're moving into this is Korean skincare and this is Japanese health. Yeah. And it's very interesting to watch how all of that goes. But it's all to say that I think why there's the rise in walking is that people in the US have recognized that car culture is entirely toxic. I'm someone who I literally won't live places where I have to be the one driving all the time and I have to live. So I chose where I'm living now because it's a 10-minute walk to the market. And that is something that I'm I need to have that in my life, especially for my mental health. I need to be outside. I need to be walking. I need to see trees. That's what works for me. But so many people in the US have looked at that and then wait a minute. All these countries that have better health outcomes, they're living decades beyond us in better health. their life is centered around walking,
Yeah.
which is why I think sometimes people are like, walking is not exercise because that's just a way of life. Because if you live in that kind of culture, that's what it feels like. Like we just walk everywhere. We do
Yeah.
all of that. But I think for people in the US, like walking is a form of fitness, especially when you consider how many places they don't even have sidewalks.
Oh my gosh. Like even my neighborhood, I'm like, well, how is there not a sidewalk in here at all? But yeah, you have to be intentional with your walks in America, which is crazy to say out loud, but that's why it feels as more exercise now for Americans, just because most of us like can't just go on a walk. We have to like kind of plan it out. I've got to drive to the lake around the trail in Austin to go walk there. But it's like I'm getting in my car to go walk, which is crazy to say, but like that's how we have to do it. So that's why I would absolutely consider it exercise still. Yeah.
How can people be intentional and maximize like the benefits of their walks?
Yeah, I think any walk is good. Like, right? Any sleep is great. Water is great. But like if we want to really focus on longevity and we want to increase our step count and focus on that body recomposition, we can focus on the lengthening of the walks, of course. Like if you're just starting out, maybe you're just going on a 5-minute walk. If you've got a little bit more time, maybe you go somewhere where you are in nature or some sort of, a place where you're not just in a neighborhood, in concrete jungle. If you have the capacity to it, maybe get in some of those speed walks. You can grab a weighted vest. I'm someone that loves to listen to podcasts or audiobooks. So that's a really great way to get those steps in. So any walk is good walk, but if you can have it be a little bit longer or speed it up a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah. Weighted vests, there have been people posting recently the research saying, and what they're saying is that there aren't really benefits to wearing weighted vests. It's not really helping your bone density. It's not really helping you burn more calories. To me personally, it seems silly. It's like anytime the research is like, we just didn't find those benefits and those effects, but then people wearing them are like, no, but I'm feeling this, or like, check out like my Z-score, like, and check out like, how my bone density looks now. I want to get your opinion on that because I'm definitely someone, you'll see my gym later on. I have multiple weighted vests. And so like if I'm squatting and I usually use dumbbells or barbells, I'll also put on a weighted vest to add things on. Being my audience knows I had excision surgery for my endometriosis, and I wasn't allowed to pick up weights for a while. So I actually put on a weighted vest that just added a little more weight so I could still do movement with that. So anyhow, this is to say I'm a really big fan of weighted vests. I'm also a tiny person. In my mind, I'm like 6 foot, but in reality, I'm not. I'm tiny. I even look back at like, when I was like working out, like, going hardcore in my 20s, and I was like, I was strong, but I'm still tiny. So I'm like, any extra mass that I can put on me, I think will have benefits. But I want to hear it from you. What do you think about weighted vests?
Yeah, I think like you've mentioned, we're just adding more weight to our body. So if you are in a bigger body, you don't need a weighted vest. If you have a backpack on, if you carry a baby, if you have a large purse, like that's all it really is. It's just distributed in a way that makes it easy to move around. So really, if you have a backpack with some cans in it of beans or canned corn, like that's still a weighted vest, but it's just in a way that like feels easy to move with. So in the question of like, what do I think about it? I think it's great if it works for people. And really, at the end of the day, if somebody really likes something, I'm not going to take it away from them. I want movement to feel joyful and exciting to you and add in that resistance training because it's really necessary. Because walking with a weighted vest is not strength training. Like that's for sure. Can it raise your heart rate because this added weight is on your body? Absolutely. Can your walks be harder? Can you, do some more, like, can it feel like more cardio for you? Absolutely. So like I said, I feel like it works really well for people just because they think they are getting more out of it just because they have more weight on their body. That's all it really is.
Yeah. And you were saying like, okay, so if it's a purse and it is weighted, friends, every physical therapist I've interviewed on the podcast is going to kill us for that one.
Yes.
But the other thing I will say is like a little hack is that every time I go up the stairs, I try to put my toddler on my back and go up the stairs, like carrying my toddler. And I'm like, he's getting bigger, so I have to get stronger. Like my body has to adapt. So just for people who are listening, if you are lugging around kids or dogs, some people do wear their dogs on their back as well. Like that's giving them that extra tension and stress on the body, which is ultimately what forces the body to change. Can we talk about that? Why it has to be uncomfortable?
With strength training or just with anything?
We're pretty much everything, right? But with body composition specifically, if you want to build muscle, if you want to have good bone density, you've got to get uncomfortable.
Ooh, this is actually a great segue into the Pilates versus strength training trend too, because I know you mentioned that. Let's go to what you're talking about first with the why are we pushing ourselves? Why does it have to be challenging? We need to push our bodies to a specific point where our muscles are working hard enough. And when you're at a point in your strength training journey where you're just starting out, you can start with your body weight exercise, and that can be good for you. But eventually, we're going to need to put more load to make sure that you are seeing that progress over time, and we're loading the muscles to actually find that hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. And there will always be a point where you will be able to do more. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to lift more weights. You can put more time under tension. You can add more reps. You can slow things down. You can shorten your rest. So progressive overload in some capacity. But there has to be this challenge with the muscles in order for them to grow.
Now, you said the Pilates versus strength training. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the difference really, I'm going to start with Pilates is great. If you like Pilates, please do Pilates. However, there is a difference between Pilates, muscular endurance, and strength training, building strength in your body. Pilates is more, it's more on that muscular endurance side. It's 12, 15, 20 reps. It's a lot longer holds, and you're just not putting enough tension on your muscles to see that growth and increase your bone density. So is it absolutely amazing for your core stability and longevity of your body? Yes. However, it does not provide the same load that strength training does. So it's complementary, but it's not strength training.
Yeah. Well, I am a big fan of Pilates, and I've been using it. After both of my children were born, it was part of my pelvic floor rehab, then going through endometriosis excision surgery. My PT, I work with her. I swear that's harder than strength training or anything else that I do. Tiana, you know. But the Pilates portion, I work with a physical therapist once a week to rehabilitate my core because they had to cut through my abs and like go into my body. But also women who have endometriosis, adenomyosis, a history of childbirth, a history of pelvic floor injury, like a history of sitting. We all have trigger points in our pelvis. And something that has been really interesting in my journey of coming up. So I'm in my 40s. I want to do Pilates because the number one reason why women go into nursing homes is for urinary incontinence. I do not want that. But I also want to make sure that my core is bracing my spine and my body so that I can lift heavier. Something interesting that's come out of this is that there has been, I was just saying this to my husband, since my 20s, I get on and off knee pain. And I have done everything. And I've seen physical therapists for that and all kinds of things. And we finally figured out that my knee pain was actually a radiation of pelvic floor trigger points that were going on. And so in working on my pelvic floor, it has alleviated IT band pain, knee pain. And so that's something whenever I see people bagging on Pilates, I'm like, hold up, because Pilates is so important for the foundation of your core. And especially, I think, when you're in your 40s and older, if you do not have a strong core, you are one movement away from a back injury, especially if you're somebody who is picking up children, picking up animals, picking up groceries, like doing these basic day-to-day activities, you can really have an injury. And so, and that's my like whole why I advocate for Pilates. But as you were saying, like you need to have the strength training as well, which is why my routine is Pilates once a week. And then it's strength training, usually 3 to 5 days a week that I'm fitting in.
The cool thing about what you're saying is that I think you can do a lot of those things with strength training work, with mobility work, with core stability. And you can get a lot of that through strength training. I just don't think people really put those two together, which is unfortunate. People think that a squat is a squat and just using my quads. But a squat, if you're holding the weight in front of you, there's so much core activation. We're working our biceps and our shoulders and our quads and our pelvic floor and our trunk. Like there's so glutes, there's so much happening in that. And so if you can find that tension through your whole body with a goblet squat, I think you can still get a lot of that stability and strength that you're looking for in your trunk. However, I do think that Pilates does a really great job of explaining in a way that makes sense. And I'm not going to glaze over the fact that I will recommend every woman in the world to go see a pelvic floor therapist. That was a huge game changer for me. I was experiencing some incontinence and I've never had a child before. And I learned so much from it just by going to see them and understanding that it's not just Kegels.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And actually I shouldn't be doing Kegels because so it's so important to do that. Absolutely. But you can really see a lot of that strength stability through intentional mobility and strength training.
So I think Pilates is for a lot of women the first time they ever actually learn to activate their core properly. I was a group fitness instructor through my 20s, and I think about how people would come into my classes and I would give them all the cues to activate their core. And yet I think what people really need is more of that one-on-one because a lot of people go right into obliques, not getting into the transverse abdominis, which, we love the obliques because it's our girdle. Like Kim Kardashian could never if you have strong obliques, but there's so much more to it. So for people who are like, well, I don't want to go to Pilates, I can't afford Pilates, if Pilates is not accessible, how do you recommend that they engage their core, that they are actually, because I think so often people are doing squats and they're not thinking about their core. I think a lot of the times people are moving through life not thinking about their core, right? Like you think about when people lift things and people always say, lift with your legs and not with your back. And it's like, but your back's going to be involved. Like it's almost people got the same mindset as medicine, as if we can compartmentalize the body and be like, I'm going to lift with your legs. Nothing else is happening there. Yeah. And yet most of the movements we're doing, we're engaging multiple muscle groups throughout the body. So talk to us about how you walk through clients, like engaging their core.
Yeah, this is a great question. I forgot who I learned this from, but think of your, think you have a smoothie straw from your throat all the way down to your pelvic floor. It's like one of those like really thick ones. And you're trying to suck out the last like banana at the bottom of the cup. And so that's how I would transition into like feeling your core because you're really pulling up and in to be able to feel everything around you, to feel your whole trunk. I like to have like a fanny pack or a belt or something on your waist so you can actively feel that. I'll definitely cue it like from lying down on your ground, like you're setting up for a bridge where your knees are bent and you can have your hands kind of braced around your stomach. A lot of people think it's just like braced like someone's about to punch you, but the only time that would be really beneficial for women is when you're doing like a 1-rep PR. And that's not how most of us live on a daily basis. So we can, if we can imagine the banana coming up through that big smoothie straw, we can really suck up and in and pull everything in together.
I love that you say the pulling up. There is, I think his handle is the glutes doctor. I don't know. He's like, I think a Scottish man who's hilarious.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of him.
Anyhow, but his cue is that you want to brace your core like you're about to sneeze. And I'm like, are you working with women? I think I know you don't have a vagina because you say that because most people bear down when they're going to sneeze, which is something that can lead to incontinence. So I love that you talk about that pulling up. And, for people listening, we often think like exhale to brace our core, but the pelvic floor, and I learned this through years of going through pelvic floor physical therapy, the pelvic floor also needs to relax with the inhale. And that's like a second piece that I think a lot of women are missing is they think so much about the brace, but then there's also the release. And that's something I've been trying to be more intentional with my exercise lately is So it's just been through doing body scans that I realized that while I'm exercising, I never let the muscle go to relaxation. Like I'm working my glutes and it is like tense and tenser, tense and tenser. And I'm like, I have to let it relax. Why is it so important to let the muscle relax before engaging again?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think of it being like rest periods. Like, why do we rest in between sets? And it's really the same thing. We've got to make sure that our muscle is fully recovered. Now, this is an interesting question because I think of like a glute emphasized RDL or a glute emphasized like GHD.
Okay, you got to tell people what those are.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My bad. An RDL, Romanian deadlift. So if you have two dumbbells in hand, Romanian deadlift is where you stand up, you start from a standing position, you bring the weights down, you hinge from your hips. Think about sending your butt back like you're closing a door with your butt and you've got something in front of you. You stop the weights right below the knees and you stand up. Glute emphasized means that there's more bend in the knee so that you get more flexion and extension of the glutes. And so if I think of that specific exercise, sometimes I actually won't fully come up and I'll keep that emphasis around my glutes so I can have that time under tension the whole time, which is like a squat would be, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. If I'm doing 8 reps of that glute emphasized RDL and I'm never ever recovering, that's like 16 seconds of time under tension with your glutes. So I think it's kind of twofold because you can actually absolutely do that if you don't have like adequate amount of weight and you want to really focus on your glutes. However, you can also hold your breath a lot. And that's where kind of like some of that like bracing of the core comes into play, where if you don't have that release or if you're not exhaling, that's where maybe your lower back comes into play or you're using other parts of your body that maybe are overcompensating. So it's a give and take. You can do either. But I would say if you have a lot of weight that you're using, standing up in between each Romanian deadlift or glute bridge is really helpful for that.
So you can keep the time under tension and then have a rest period between sets.
Yes.
Or you can contract and relax with each repetition. And what you're saying is that if you don't have a lot of weight, then better to keep the time under tension.
If you're trying to challenge yourself with it, absolutely.
Why else will we lift weights?
Some people just go through the motions, unfortunately. And yes, you are absolutely correct. Like, why else would we do it if we're not trying to challenge ourselves? Some people just kind of go in and do the thing because they know they need to check it off their list. Yeah. Or they have a certain amount of time, or you're just going to do the thing. Not every workout has to be the hardest workout ever, but if you only have a short amount of time, like putting in that work in that amount of time is a lot more beneficial.
Yeah. And I also think that some people are going through the motions because it's for mental health.
Exactly.
And that this is going to help their mood. And so not necessarily every workout, like you said, is going to be the most challenging. Yeah. I want to talk about busting some myths when it comes to weight loss. So I want to talk about fat loss versus fitness and why the scale is such a poor measurement of progress for perimenopausal women.
Yes, this is a great question. If you saw a picture of me from like 8 years ago and now, you'd be like, oh yeah, like you've definitely gained weight. I'm the exact same amount of weight, but because of that body recomposition, because I've gained more muscle and lost fats, that's what body recomposition is. Your body can change so significantly. So the scale shows one number, and that number is just going to be how much you weigh. Like that is the only thing that you see. It doesn't go into account like your bone mass or your muscle mass or your fat tissue. Like it doesn't show any of that. So I always tell anyone that comes in as a client with broads to do a DEXA scan beforehand. That is so helpful. It's so necessary to see. There are some really great home body scans. I don't know if you've heard of Hume. They are pretty accurate as well, but having a full body scan of your body is so helpful to see that full data so that when you check again, it's not just one number on that scale. You have so much more that goes into it. Yeah.
And I would say be careful of the body composition. It's software that you can get at home, some of the scales. So my husband did this like horrible thing. Men, you should never do this. He bought me a scale. I think it was for my birthday. And I was like, this is like not this is not the move, but he's like, you're so data driven. You love having all this data.
Yeah.
And this does body composition analysis, and it gives you like all this feedback, and it like made a big promise for high tech. I got on it and it was like, oh yeah, your BMI is like 30 something. You're like 31% fat. Like it was like horrible data. It was like it told me I was obese. I needed, and I was like, what? And fortunately, my primary care doctor, she has a actual body composition analysis machine, hooking me up to the electrodes. I go in, I check it out. She's like, everything's perfect. It looks normal. You're totally fine. But I was like, oh my God, if I didn't know better, if I didn't know what I know, like this little scammy scale would have like crushed me, like crushed my mental health.
I totally agree with that. And I would say, like, if you have the accessibility to go get a DEXA scan, I would highly recommend it. There was one time I did a DEXA scan, I did an in-body, I did calipers, and I did this Hume body pod all in one day, just to see the accuracy of just the body fat alone. Also, there's one that is water. So it's like a water tank.
Yeah.
I did them all in the same day, like within like a few hours of each other, just to see how accurate they were. And this Hume body scan was actually like 1% off.
Wow.
And so for accuracy wise, like I do promote them because I feel like they're a reputable and accurate scale. However, there is nothing better than a DEXA scan out there, in my personal opinion.
So many women are taught that cardio is the gold standard for weight loss. I want to hear from you. Why might cardio be sabotaging perimenopausal women's weight loss goals?
Cardio, I will also preface this with like, if you like cardio, please do cardio. I want you to do it, but strength training is queen. Strength training is queen. Cardio, it doesn't allow, well, there's a couple of pieces to this. When we are strength training, we're burning more calories at rest. When you are doing cardio, we are burning the calories during that cardio session and then not after that. And so that alone shows you that strength training is more powerful than cardio in fat loss. Cardio, it tends to, especially as you get into perimenopause, your cortisol levels will go higher. If you're into Orange Theory or some sort of Barry's boot camp or some sort of HIIT training, the stress levels may be higher. And when you're going into perimenopause, your hormones are already fluctuating so much and the stress levels are already so high. So putting more stress on the body is doing more harm than good, right? Because when you have more stress, we're sleep, appetite, all of those things. And then that also plays into like cardiovascular health is great, but when we're looking at that body recomposition and fat loss, we need to have more muscle on our body because really that muscle mass plays the biggest role when it comes to losing fat overall, just because of that, again, like having that body burning more calories at rest.
I think this is a big reason why women who start to switch away from primarily doing cardio and cardio killing themselves kind of routines and go into walking start to see weight loss, because perimenopause is very unique. So the onset of perimenopause is, usually progesterone decline. So what we see is that the corpus luteum, the temporary endocrine structure in the ovary, doesn't make enough progesterone. We start to have sleep problems. We start to have more PMS. Then over time, we get cycles where we don't ovulate predictably. Now we're definitely not having progesterone. And progesterone is such an ally in helping us manage stress. And so then we start to see cortisol goes up. Cortisol goes up. The body says, we're under stress. We're not going to make progesterone, make more cortisol. And in that mechanism of being under more stress, sometimes the body also says, we need to hold on to calories because we are under threat. And we don't know why, because your body's like, I don't know why your boss is not a tiger, like not an actual threat, but yet perceiving it as a threat. And so I think that having that component of what you were talking about, of things that help reduce your stress, walking can sometimes be that. You have said not every workout needs to wreck you. Women who are trying to lose weight find that statement counterintuitive. Explain it to us.
Why do you feel like they think it's counterintuitive?
So there's a saying that like sweat is fat crying, right? And so women will hear things like that and think like, if I can't walk the next day, if I am like completely out of breath, I feel like I'm going to have to crawl out of the gym. Like that must have been what it takes to lose weight.
Those are all statements that we have heard heard, they are not reality. I mean, we all grew up in the 2000s where it was no pain, no gain, never miss a Monday, sweat is fat, crying, like do it for the pancakes, like you must earn your food. But we all know now in 2025 that that is all bullshit. It's all just lies that were being fed to us for women to look a certain way. And that certain way was to be small and thin and fragile women. And I am here, as my brand Broads is for women to take up more space so that we can be more powerful and be more confident and be more proud of ourselves in that capacity. And so there is a shift happening, but we've been told for decades that this is the way it should be. We should be sore. We should feel exhausted. But that is not the case. And it is going to take so much time, so much reps up here and between the ears of you believing that that is true. But once you make the switch, give it just a few months, and I swear you'll notice like the most massive difference that you'll be like, wow, I can't believe I listened to that bullshit for so long.
I said the bullshit.
I did
I'm
too.
gonna out
I'm not,
myself.
I did too.
Yeah. So I was in my 20s, group fitness instructor, early 2000s. And I would say things like when it was during the holidays, I'd be like, come on, 10 more push-ups for that cookie.
Yeah.
Let's do the squats for whatever the dessert was. And I remember this woman who was in her 40s came up to me and she was like, why do we have to do these things just to be able to eat food? And I was like, I don't have a good answer for that. And I was like, she challenged me on that. And I was like, I'm just repeating things that I've heard, things that in my training, they said motivate women. And she's like, it doesn't motivate me. It makes me feel like garbage.
Yep.
And then I asked my class the next time, when I say stuff like that, does it make you feel like garbage? And they were like, yes, I feel shame. I feel guilt. And I was like, well, then why would you want to come back and see me if I'm going to stop doing that. But I will just say that it's always, even I will say as a doctor, it was always my patients in perimenopause and beyond who have taught me the most. If you just listen to them, and this isn't some just wise women stuff. This is women who no longer have the hormonal allies for the mouth filter, for the executive function to stop them from just saying what they've always felt. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I mean, I used to say it too, because it was decades of us telling that this was the way to do it. And now we're finally making this transition. And unfortunately, there's a lot of women in their 40s and 50s that have heard it for so long that they can't believe what we're saying is true now.
Yeah.
And so that is my purpose and passion on why I do what I do, is because I want women to see how much that they are truly capable of, because all we were told was that we weren't capable and that we should be smaller and that we should be weak and fragile and be smaller. But as soon as you put on some muscle mass and feel that confidence, you're going to leave your ex-boyfriend, you're going to get a promotion, the confidence just pushes you through the roof. But you have to just try and lean into that change before it happens.
Yeah. I was a kid in the 90s, and when Kate Moss, that's her natural body type, we love her for it, but her body type was put in front of us. And it was literally called heroin chic. So somebody who's doing drugs to the point that they're malnourished and emaciated is an entire aesthetic that we were supposed to be achieving.
Yeah.
And that's what we were told. So those of us who are in perimenopause now, that was the age when we were so influential in the things that we were told. Why do you think it is society tells women that they should be smaller, they should take up less space?
Well, we could be here all day because
let's go.
I mean, why? Because women have always been the less superior, gender. That's just always how it's been. And now that
not by fact, by society standards.
By society standards, absolutely. And I mean, I think that we have all seen, especially if you are in the US, that women are not treated the same. We should be on this lower pedestal, and that's just how we've been forever. And so if we've always heard those words, why would we believe anything else is true? And as I've mentioned, there's so much change happening, but I still feel like we're a couple steps behind. And so it's this constant, yes, we're up there. And then we get shifted back again. So we're constantly trying to change the narrative and become these badass, strong women. But it takes talking about it like this. It takes women in perimenopause and menopause to hear these facts and see these really strong women take up space, to know that is something that they can be capable of. But we can't do that without talking about it and without sharing these experiences.
It occurred to me just a few weeks ago, another reason that we have received this message is because that it's easier to physically control us. And I watched this video of this police officer trying to take a woman out of her car. She just kept asking him, why am I being pulled over? Am I being detained? Like things that were completely within her rights to do. And he got upset because he doesn't have good emotional regulation, I assume. And he tried to physically remove her from the car, but she had mass. He couldn't do it. And she was videoing it and she started giggling because he was struggling and sweating, and to the point he had to call for backup to try to get her out of the car. And I was like,
hell yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. If we are strong, we cannot be physically controlled. Like there has been a narrative to control us on so many levels. And I've always thought like, take up less space because like we want women to be quiet. We want them to be submissive. We don't want them to, we're always too much, right? But there's also this physical aspect of it as well, of like, if you have mass, you are much harder to physically control. And I don't think that, I think it's kind of amazing that it took me like 40 plus years to like have that epiphany of like, wait a minute, like it's also about like watching him manhandle her in that way. And he couldn't overcome her because this woman had mass. And I was like, I need to lift heavier. I need to get even stronger.
Absolutely. I mean, try and give me one reason why it wouldn't be good for women to be strong.
No, there's not one.
Why it wouldn't be great for women to have muscle. Why? I mean, and there's always this word of bulky and masculine and looking a certain way. And it's like, why wouldn't I want to be strong and bulky so that I can stand up for myself?
Yeah. Well, exactly what you're saying right there. Why is it so threatening to men on the internet when a woman is strong? Do we see like the cute, Pilates fanatics are not like, they're not putting on a lot of muscle mass, right? So we see like the cute Pilates girl and she's just got men fawning over her in the comments. Not always. I don't want to I know you get hate too, but I see without failure, if a woman shows off her bicep, her back muscles, like she's doing squats and she's got defined thighs, there is just a line of men waiting to tear her down in the comments. And I'm like, why is this so threatening to you? Is it because you're stuck on the couch or is it something else?
I can tell you with 13 years of being on Instagram, I've had my fair share of you're a man, you're a dude, stop taking, you're trans, you're on steroids, stop taking all this stuff and masking it, when it's like, what? Why? Why does this hurt your feelings so much? And it's just these insecure, small, fragile, weak men, which, as we know, women are allowed to be weak, but men are not allowed to be weak. So they hide behind their screens and say this stuff. And what does it really do for them or for us? I mean, of course, it's tearing other women down, and it feels hurtful to get those messages. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I know now in my 36 years of life that like that means nothing to me, and that they're probably just intimidated by a strong woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also all that energy they could be spending in other ways, but here they are on the internet. So we were talking about like, don't use food, your workout as earning your food and this entire mindset. How do women move past that mindset? Because you were saying that we can tell women, but they're not believing what we say. How do we get to that point? And what would you say to women who are like, no, I have to earn my food with my workouts?
It's the same as putting the reps in the gym. We've got to put the reps in our food and nutrition journey as well. If we were always told to eat a certain amount of calories or to eat less and move more, that's what we have. That is what we know to believe is true. There's two things I would say to this. First is having the education and knowledge. I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm also not someone that counts calories or macros. There's a couple things I do look at, like fiber and protein, but with my clients, we don't track those numbers. However, having the education and knowledge of what you're actually consuming is really powerful. Just like having the data on a DEXA scan, having the numbers and knowing your body and what works best for you is really valuable. And so even if it's just educating yourself on how much protein is in the food that you're eating throughout the day, maybe tracking a few days. I always like to say track a few days during the week and a few days on the weekend, just so you know kind of where you're at on what you're consuming and how it fuels your body. So I like to take inventory on the intuitive eating and mindful scale. Does this food actually fuel your workouts? Do you feel like you're getting enough sleep? Do you have the energy you need to go throughout your day? That way we have the data of what you consumed to actually manage that and trial and error some other things. But as far as changing the framing of like, you have to earn this, it's like having that actual data will help you understand what you need to actually fuel those workouts that you're doing.
You've called motivation bullshit and said that discipline is what shows up on messy days. How can that mindset be a game changer for women whose energy and hormones are unpredictable?
Motivation is bullshit. Do you believe that's true?
I mean, I think that it depends, right? And what I will say about motivation in your midlife years is that as estrogen declines, dopamine follows. And so dopamine is our like, I want to do this because I want the reward, and then I get the reward and my brain tells me good job. I think in addition to that, we need to be talking about the estrogen framework of things, because when your estrogen goes low, you have a harder time building muscle, you have more inflammation, you have more joint pain, it hurts when you work out, and it hurts after you work out. So I think in that scope of things, like, yeah, what is motivation? How is motivation going to get you to the gym? Because you don't have the brain chemistry, because your hormones are leaving, and your body doesn't feel great like it used to a couple decades before.
I think this can go back to building that solid foundation in your 30s, 20s and 30s before you get into perimenopause. Because if you already have that solid foundation and lifestyle choices in these years, it's going to be habitual, which makes it a discipline, which makes it, you don't need actual motivation to go. I'm at a point where I don't need motivation. I'm going to go and do the thing. And that's where those days come into play of, does this need to be the hardest workout ever? No. But am I in there just getting in the work to make me feel a little bit better afterwards? Absolutely. But when I think about why I say motivation is bullshit, is because it's never always going to be there. It's not always going to be there. And so if we're always searching for something and looking for something that's not a tangible thing, we're never going to do the thing. And so, yes, there's intrinsic versus extrinsic. Intrinsic within, you feel it. I have it right now. Like, no matter what, I intrinsically know that I want to move my body. And then there's the extrinsic, where if you're not actually in your fitness routine yet, and you're starting maybe in your 40s or 50s and don't have that solid foundation, you can have these like small rewards to get to it, which I think is great for a lot of people. However, those rewards may not ever still be enough. So that's where building those habits and creating that discipline makes way more of a difference. And that's where, if we go back to building a routine, putting your workout in your calendar, not letting anyone jump over it, grabbing an accountability, working with a coach, like having something like that is really going to keep you going when that motivation doesn't show up.
That working with a coach or having a partner is called body doubling in the neurodivergent, mostly the ADHD world. It is something so fundamentally necessary in the perimenopause and beyond years, because most people are going to not find that motivation. They're going to find these, but if they have the accountability, that can be something that anchors them in. You and I have both gone through some very serious losses lately, and it's been a lot of grief. I have continued to work out even when I've been told, like, you can't work out, you need to rest your body. I suffered a late pregnancy loss. It's technically called an abortion, which is medical me wanting to say that. That's technically what it's called. But I still worked out because the feeling, if anyone has ever felt depression or extreme grief, being stuck inside your mind, it felt like, and it still have these moments where I'm behind the glass and I can see how good my life is. I can see what I should be grateful for, but I can't touch it and I can't feel it. And I'm stuck there and I'm feeling trapped in my own mind. And I just continued to go and work out. And I'm not even kidding. Like, my husband would be like, "Are you okay?" checking in on me, because I'm just like bawling my eyes out while I'm working out. But I'm like, I know the research, and I know that the only way I shatter that glass is if I keep moving my body, if I get outside and I do the things that are so hard. And so for me, in a really tough situation, that it was what got me to continue to move, to continue to exercise, is that I was like, I hate feeling like this. I would do anything to escape this. For many women, that's alcohol. That is something that numbs them out. But the thing we know about that is, I'm like, that's just going to push you deeper and deeper down. And when you come out of it, you're even deeper. And then you need more alcohol to like get to that place of numbing. And then you're deeper and deeper. I'm curious from you, in facing challenges, hardship, things that would, that really incapacitates us. How have you been able to keep going and continue working out?
I will say that I am a fitness professional. I've done this for most of my life. I grew up as an athlete, and movement has saved me so many times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in very tough situations, and fitness has truly saved my life. Being able to lift something off the ground and being proud of myself in the gym has pushed me through really big challenges. However, I am a professional. Like, this is what I do for my life. And so I want to like preface it with that, because I know that for a lot of people, they don't have the foundation that I have. Getting into the gym and getting in my workout is the one part of my day that I feel that I have control over. And the other parts, it's almost the time, like you were mentioning, I can be crying and I can be thinking about it, but my body is kind of taking over. I can push my body and my muscles into kind of a place where my mind doesn't think as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so it provides this kind of distraction, but also this feeling of accomplishment. And right now, it's hard to feel accomplished in any other part of my day. And so movement has just been, and I say movement because it's not just in the gym. With strength training is obviously a huge piece of my life, but it is maybe doing a yoga flow or doing some mobility, just, laying down on the floor or going out for a walk, that has given me the capacity to keep going throughout the rest of my day when I feel like I don't have as much control.
I think that's really helpful for women to hear. I'd also love to hear from you how women can stay motivated when they feel so fatigued or they're experiencing mood swings.
I think it's really important to just check in with where you're at. For some people, maybe going to a gym might be overwhelming to them, the social aspect of it. I actually can't go to the gym right now. I can't be around a bunch of people I know.
Mm-hmm.
I have to work out in the gym or come to Mexico City and work out here, so I don't see anyone I know. But that can be hard for a lot of people. And so, at least just getting outside, nature does wonders. And if you live in a place where you do have a trail or some water or something where I've read a lot of grief books recently where if you have the ability to see a wide landscape in front of you, like a lake or mountain or something, it gives you more hope. It gives you more hope that you can keep showing up for yourself. And so, with these mood swings of perimenopause or grief in general, getting outside is it's just so key. And that can then push you into moving through your body, through whether it's yoga or stretching or just, showing up for yourself in different ways.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, so in the United States, it seems to be that everybody is so hinging their life around the weather. And yet we see in a lot of other cultures around the world, like the planet is iced over where they live and they're still getting outside. Yeah. So for people listening, don't wait for sunshine. And I mean, I honestly find like being out in the rain very cathartic, very healing. And, to your point, like this weekend, we took the kids and we went out into the woods and we just let them run around on trails. We ran around, we found sticks and just did all kinds of stuff. And just being outside in nature has its own healing. There's this, we see Japanese culture has this, Nordic culture has this. They have words in their language for the therapy that nature offers you. And so I really just want to underscore what you're saying about getting outside and seeing the landscape. I think is such a beautiful tip as well. You've also said that rest itself is productive. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think because I grew up in the same time as you, where we're like work out 6 or 7 days a week, doing 2 a days, and I never actually gave my my body the ability to rest and recover. And I lost my cycle and my energy was low and I didn't sleep well and I didn't really understand it until now. I am putting my body through these rest days. I have these intentional rest days of, 2 days a week where what does rest mean for a lot of people? It's chill. Can you go outside for a walk or, get in some yoga or light movement? Sure. But if you're not giving your body that rest and recovery, the muscles don't have enough time to rebuild. And so and what I mean by productive is that because we were told that you have to work out every day and you have to do so much, it's so much more productive to those people to see that you can get so much more out of it when you do give your body that recovery. And if you grew up or if you were in the same time as me where it was like you felt like you had to, it does feel like something that you have to check off your list to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can overworking out, as you said, like the double in a day, can that actually sabotage your fitness goals?
Absolutely, because it comes down to your stress levels, which we've talked about this whole time. Is that if our body is constantly in stress, it's going to shift so many other parts of our life with our lifestyle and sleep and nutrition, all that stuff. So it can actually absolutely do more harm than good.
You say mobility isn't optional. Why is mobility so important for hormones and longevity for perimenopausal women?
I think it's important to note that there is a difference between mobility, flexibility, and stability. Mobility is the ability to actively move freely within your joints. And so if we think of women in their later ages falling down, or you're a lot more likely to break a hip after a certain age if you fall down. If we have at full range of motion within our hips, ankles, knees, shoulders, back, we're able to come out of those falls a lot easier. And so mobility training is a huge part of my coaching within Broads, my app, and with all of my one-on-one coaching, because we need to be able to move within our entire body. A lot of us just move forward and back. We need to move frontal, sagittal, transverse plane. And so I utilize a lot of that in our mobility training. So that is it could be as simple as like sitting down on the floor and standing up. If you need to use your hands or if you need to lean or move around to get up, that should be the first thing you should do. Sit on the ground more, move through your hips, move in your ankles. Like, do you have that full range of motion in your ankles? Like, if you don't have that now, how can you expect to put your foot down as you get down from a stair and not expect to roll your ankle? And it would take so much longer to, get through that injury. So that's why it's a huge value add in the way I train and the way I work with clients.
How often would you recommend people do mobility training?
Every day. Yeah, I have it in every workout in Broads, and I also just have mobility videos you can follow along with. But it can be something as simple as, like I said, sitting on the ground. There's an exercise called a 90-90 or a shin box switch. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but you're basically sitting on the ground with your knees both at 90 degrees, and you are just shifting your knees back and forth with keeping your feet on the ground. So it's a really great one to just do anytime. We can also be doing ankle circles right here as we're sitting down with our podcast, sitting down and talking. You can do some wrist circles while you're on the call with someone. It can be small little things that you can add throughout the day, so it doesn't have to be super overwhelming.
So what adjustments should women make to their workouts in perimenopause if they want to experience energy and not burnout?
Compound lifts are always huge. So typically in a workout, I would do a mobility dynamic warm-up, and then we would get into a couple compound lifts to start. Compound lifts is multi-muscle, multi-joint. So stuff like squats, hinging, so a good morning or a deadlift. We would do a push movement, so anything pressing at your chest and pull movement. And then we do some sort of core. But if we want to really focus on that, time that you may have allotted or energy or making sure that you're getting the most out of your training, compound lifts will absolutely be the best bang for your buck. Yeah.
How do we stop making the pants size the litmus test for our self-worth or even our fitness level?
Why is it part of your self-worth anyway? Why does the number on the pants or the scale or the shirt that you're wearing make you who you are? Why does that mean that you are worth something else? I mean, and we all know in women's clothing, I could be a size 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, a 27, a 24, a large. Shirts too. Like the sizing that we wear does not matter anything to us. But because we've been told that smaller is better, when we see the pant size changing, we think of it as a bad thing. But what if you have more energy? What if your glutes have grown and your legs are stronger and you can do things you never thought you could, and the size may still go up?
How would you recommend that women reconnect with their joy of movement instead of just chasing results, instead of chasing losing the belly fat, losing the weight, being a certain size? How can they just connect with feeling joy in what they do?
Movement is different for everybody. A really good friend of mine loves to dance, and that is her joyful movement. Now, and like I've been saying with my clients, if they come in and they like an Orange Theory or they like to cycle or swim or something, I'm not going to take that away from anybody. So finding whatever that movement is that brings you joy first is massive. Whether that's roller skating or karate or dancing, like there's so many ways to move your body that it doesn't have to be so strict in, I must do this. If we find that joy first, strength training is only going to add to it. If you're a runner and you love to run, if you strength training, it's going to make you a faster runner. It's going to make running more joyful and more entertaining. And it's going to, push out your mitigate injuries. And it's going to make you feel like you have more capability or capacity to do more. So whatever that thing that you're starting with that brings you joy, keep doing that. And then add in some of this resistance training, and then the joy is going to go through the roof.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and taking the time to chat with us today. I've really appreciated this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. If you could like, subscribe, or leave a review, it helps me so much in getting this information out to everyone who needs it. If you enjoyed this conversation, then I definitely want you to check out this